you are in the desert, there is one sound that is more dangerous than silence. It is noise. I spent years in my desert trying to fill the void left by grief or escaping the urgency of addiction, and I became a master in the art of distraction. I no longer sought drugs or alcohol. I sought constant distraction, the infinite scroll, the urgent news, the video series, the political opinion that gave me the empty feeling of having control over something. This is the nameless addiction. It is subtle, socially accepted, and even encouraged. Technology, which should be a tool, has become our new and most efficient secrets. Prison script number 3. Behind the glowing screen, I could pretend I was engaged, informed, or busy. But in reality, I was just hiding from the only confrontation that mattered, the confrontation with my own soul. McKenna warned about the Dominator culture manipulating us, and technology is its most effective instrument. It sells us the illusion that connection is made through pixels and not through true presence. It steals our time and space for surrender, keeping our mind in a constant state of anxiety and reaction. I realized that every tap on the screen, every notification, was a subtle break on my rebirth. The Logos, the word, the direct truth only speaks in silence. And the Dominator ego has an existential dread of silence. It uses technological noise to ensure I never have the courage to be alone with my own thoughts. I was afraid to disconnect, because disconnecting meant that grief and addiction would roar back in my head without the anesthesia of pixels. Noise was my new way of maintaining the illusion. Script number 4. That I was still in control. What if the only way to find the Lord's presence in your desert is to initiate a personal revolution? The revolution of silence. If what you have heard so far has already made you thoughtful, stay with me to reflect on this, and subscribe to the channel before you forget and miss the next voyages. The thinker Terence McKenna, in his essays on the taxonomy of illusion, warned that our greatest prison is not the visible walls, but the cultural illusion we accept without question. The nameless addiction of digital distraction is a form of voluntary slavery. We surrender our time, our attention, and ultimately, our courage to the screens, because it is easier than facing the inner void. The dogma of technology is, the answer is outside of you, in the next link, the next piece of news, the next purchase. The Logos tells us the opposite. The truth and novelty are inside of you, waiting for the silence to be revealed. The Dominator ego uses the nameless addiction to maintain its control. It says, you cannot afford to be silent. You will miss vital information. You will fall behind. This is the fear of obsolescence used as a spiritual break. The calling for redemption is a call for radical disconnection. It is not about rejecting the tool, but rejecting the addiction to it. It is the courage to create a void, the same void that the collapse of belief. Script number 4. Initiate a and trust that the Lord's presence will fill it with something that the pixel could never convey. Rebirth can only happen when the noise of the Dominator culture is silenced and the voice of the Logos becomes audible, clear, and undeniable. If the Dominator culture is not our friend, then what it offers us as consolation is, at best, a painkiller, and at worst, a synthetic alkaloid for the soul. McKenna argued that modern society replaced the organic, direct experience of the mystery with synthetic substitutes. The adrenaline of urgent news, the dopamine of the scroll, the fleeting comfort of a purchase that never fills the real void. The nameless addiction of technology and consumption is our daily dose of cultural synthetic. It operates on the same principle as chemical addiction. It promises immediate ecstasy and relief, but only delivers an empty repetition script, number 2, that demands increasingly larger doses. I was trying to fill the grief and silence the real addiction with the noise of pixels and the acquisition of goods. But it was like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. The dominator ego prefers the synthetic, because the synthetic is controllable. It is an on-demand solution. The logos, the Lord's presence, is not synthetic. It is organic, wild, and demands total surrender. Grace is not a pill you take to feel better. It is the oxygen you breathe after a radical detox of the soul. Radical silence demands a detoxification. Detoxifying means having the courage to abandon what you know about where to find comfort. It means accepting that the void you feel is not a defect to be filled, but a sacred space to be protected from any synthetic intrusion. When the noise is gone, and the synthetic alkaloids lose their power, grief and addiction return at full strength. This is the most dangerous and most fertile moment. It is the moment when the direct experience of suffering leads you to the direct experience of the presence. You finally realize that the only thing that can fill the void is the Logos, the truth which is not bought, but revealed. Rebirth is the body adjusting to the only source of wholeness that will sustain it, the novelty and communion that only exist outside the dominator culture, the great weapon of the nameless. Addiction is the fear of obscurity. The dominator ego not only uses technological noise to distract you, but also to threaten you. It whispers that if you disconnect, if you enter radical silence, you will miss something vital, crucial information, social connection, the rhythm of consensual reality. It infects you with spiritual and cultural FOM, the fear that God's novelty will be happening elsewhere, and you will be left behind. The courage against obscurity is the act of surrender, of knowing that by disconnecting the dominator culture, you are not losing the world. You are, for the first time, gaining your soul. The personal eschaton is your time accelerating toward novelty, and the synthetic noise of technology is the brake trying to keep you trapped in the past. You cannot guide your life by looking at the glare of the phone screen. Radical silence is not a sacrifice. It is a strategy for spiritual survival. It is the act of freeing up space for the only voice that matters, the voice of the Logos that speaks in stillness. In silence, grief is processed as real pain. Addiction is confronted as a system failure, and the testimony of deliverance becomes your greatest project. Rebirth is a revolution of consciousness against the tyranny of the dominator culture. By disconnecting the nameless addiction and accepting radical silence, you are not just healing yourself, you are participating in a secret calling for the collective consciousness. McKenna explored the concept of the noosphere, the layer of thought and consciousness that interconnects all of humanity. The dominator culture and technological noise are designed to pollute this noosphere, flooding it with fear, repetition, and illusion. Your grief, your addiction, and your anxiety are not isolated problems. They are symptoms of the sick noosphere, which desperately needs novelty. Your act of courage against obscurity, your moment of disconnection and surrenders an act of planetary service. When you silence yourself and seek the direct experience of the Logos, you are creating a focus of truth and grace that radiates outward too. Communion script number 3 and the entire noosphere. Your responsibility of truth is now twofold. Personal, maintaining transparency and surrender in your own life, and collective, being a channel for the novelty that God wants to inject into the world's consciousness. The nameless addiction steals not only your rebirth, it steals the rebirth of your community, the last refuge of the free man, the one who escaped the nameless addiction and the collapse of belief, is imagination. McKenna insisted that imagination is not mere pastime. It is the golden pathway to everywhere. It is the point where the human mind, in its most creative state, meets the logos, the word, the organizing principle that creates novelty in the universe. The dominator culture, through its noise and consumption, steals our imagination. It gives us ready-made visuals, pre-packaged sounds, and pre-chewed narratives, ensuring we never have to create our own reality or our own future. The revolution of silence is useless if, upon turning off the screen, you do not turn on your imagination. The courage of novelty is the act of imagining redemption. It is having the audacity to see, with the eyes of faith, your complete rebirth, even when your grief and your addiction scream that it is impossible. The nameless addiction is the opposite of creation. It is the destruction of the capacity to dream. Imagination, as an act of faith, projects you into the future, actively helping the logos rewrite the script of your future. You have walked the path from the nameless addiction of distraction to imagination as an act of faith. The collapse of belief and the personal eschaton have brought you to this final truth. Your healing is not an event. It is a daily discipline of attention and surrender. Your greatest obstacle is not in the world outside. It is in your own pocket, on the screen that demands your soul. The noise of the dominator culture is actively stealing your rebirth. The final plot twist of this entire journey is that the courage God demands of you today is not the courage to fight the world, but the courage to disconnect. The logos, the word that creates novelty, can only speak when you are in radical silence, using your imagination to build the future that grace is promising. When you silence the world, you allow the Lord's presence to become your soul, and so they are signs that your new sphere is begging for a novelty that only you can create through your transparency and your testimony. The nameless addiction charges a high price. It steals your time, your peace, and ultimately, your soul. The price of silence and imagination is your freedom. I ask you, with the urgency of one who has seen the world drowning in empty pixels, if you turned off all screens now, for 1 hour, what would the silence reveal about your calling that the nameless addiction is forcing you to ignore?